Have you ever thought, what if? What if this? What if that? Well, today we're going to look at blend if. So I don't know if you've ever noticed, but when we add layer styles, there has always been at the very top this little section that says blending options. And we just kind of glossed over it and pretended like it didn't exist. Well, we're going to take a look at it today. Now, if you want to, you can open this city PSD file. I have it out there for you to use. Or feel free to open a wall from the walls that we had in the past for our graffiti activity and just throw a word on there. I'll actually show one with a wall here in just a second. This is a super easy thing to do, and it's kind of the easiest way to explain the blend if. Now, you could probably watch tons of YouTube tutorials and learn way more about it. We're just going to learn some basics. So, blending options. I have the word city, and I'm going to go to my layer styles button and click blending options. And so when you're not clicked on like bevel or inner shadow or any of those, at the very top is one called blending options. And this is blending options for the layer. Now check this out. Again, probably not something that you noticed. Here is the blend mode. Here is the opacity. And here is the fill opacity. See, that's all right in there. In Photopea, it looks pretty much the same. You don't have all these extra check marks in Photopea, but you do have the normal, the opacity, the fill opacity, and these two sliders here at the bottom. The sliders are what's called blend if. Now, you can do this lots of different ways. You can set it to blend if on a red, green, or the blue channel. We're just going to look at gray because it gets too complicated, really, if we look at too much more. So we say blend if. You have this layer or the underlying layer. So our underlying layer here has a city on it, right? And it has buildings on it. So what I'm going to say is blend if. And what blend if means here is kind of like transparent if, okay? Like basically knock that part out if. So it's almost like adding a layer mask to it and us going in there by hand and like fixing all these little pieces, except we don't have to do any of that, okay? So we're not going to do anything to this layer. We're not actually looking at this layer. We're not saying if the city is white. Well, no, the city's white and it's only white, so there's not much we can do with that. On the bottom, it says if the underlying. So if the city is white, on the underlying layer, knock out areas on the city that are this color. Okay, so if I start dragging this in, what's going to happen is underneath the city, where these buildings are, where there's black, it's going to start knocking those out. Check this out. All right, so it's doing it a little bit because there's not a lot of black. There's a lot of gray if I get farther in here. Oh, there we go. Look at that. All right, now this is not the same as just changing the blend mode. Let's look at that. Let's put it back. If I go up and change the blend mode, it disappears because it's white. It doesn't show up on most of these. And then finally, when I get to overlay here, it's going to look like that. But like my letters aren't actually white anymore, and the whole thing is transparent. That's not what we're looking for. We're still dealing with a normal blend mode, but we're knocking out. So we're not making everything transparent. We're just knocking out pieces that are certain shades. So basically, underneath, where it's black or gray, as I pull this in, it's going to knock those out. And you get some pretty cool effects that way, right? Now, it looks a little harsh. So one little trick they have is to point to that little triangle deal and hold down the Alt key and drag over. And see how you separate those? That puts a blend. So now, if I get these too far apart, then there's going to be a gradual fade a little bit around those little knockouts. Okay? Now I'm going to hit OK. Now what's cool about this is if I would have added a layer mask and went in and taken out every one of those little windows, that would take it forever, first off. But now if I take my move tool and I move it around, like it won't do anything up here because there's no black or gray underneath it that's highlighted. Now I get over here, there might be a little bit when I get into some of the dark clouds. But as we get down here, look at that. Isn't that interesting? Such a cool little feature. Now, this also works. Like I said, we could have used it. You're probably kind of mad now. You could have used it a little bit with that brick wall on the graffiti. So let's go look at that one and I'll go look at it in Photopea. I've got pulled up one with whatever on there. Now, of course, the thing behind you has to have, you know, black, grays, or whites if we're dealing with that specifically, if that's what we're choosing the channel to be. It's looking at all of these red, green, or blue. If you switch it to the others, it's going to affect those areas. But here I've got my whatever. Again, it's in white. I'm going to come here to my layer style, go to blending options, and then here you'll see it, blend if. So if the background has black, as we pull it, ooh, look at that one. That one looks really neat. And then I'm going to separate them. Holding down Alt, pulling that. That's cool. Look at that. I mean, that kind of almost does look like it was written on there, if I do say so myself. Pretty awesome. Okay, let me duplicate this layer. And let's try it with a different color. So if I have the second one here, let's pick a different color. Red. Hit OK. Oh, you know what? I didn't use my type tool. I always do that. I always forget. Okay, here we go. There you go. And you can see how it works with that. So it's a little bit different. You know, whenever your font is not black or white, it's going to be a little bit different here as to what you can see. So that setting doesn't work exactly. Like, I'm going to have to go back in here, and I may want to pull these out more. There we go. Now you get too far over, and we're going to get into that white zone. There we go. There. That looks pretty good. Look at that. Here, I'll zoom up just a little bit so you can see better. So you can see what it's doing. It's actually knocking out parts of the letters. It kind of is a cool way to add a grunge effect. But anyway, so that's Blend If. Really fancy little feature hidden on the Layer Styles button under Blending Options. So Blend If, remember you can drag the sliders or hold Alt to separate them so it's more gradual and it looks a little bit more professional. That's it.